And Phil, it's been a few weeks since we last spoke on the record talking about you extending your stay here. I know your phone has been hot since then. What can you tell us in terms of where we've got to now?
Where we've got to? It's one of them times of the year, Matty, as managers, where you do a lot of work behind the scenes, a hell of a lot of mails, meeting people, hopefully the right people. You're formulating opinions about deals that you've been offered or that's been thrown to you. There's lots of work going on behind the scenes that it's hard to describe. It's sort of a waste of time and a waste of energy and a waste of effort, but it's not, because when it comes together, you see the fruits of your labour. As a manager, it's one of the most rewarding times. As a supporter, as a player, it seems to be a dead time. Everybody just wants to go away on holiday. Everybody wants to get away from football because they've been bang at it for 9 months. All the efforts and the energy. It's almost like your preparation for a game. Nobody sees the preparation for the game. All they see is the 90 minutes, and everybody gets judged on that. When you're a manager, nobody sees the hard yards that you're doing now. All they see is the signing. And the signing of that player, everybody then formulates an opinion, and whether it's a good signing, bad signing, indifferent signing, you'll never know until you get to the Saturday, until you see the player play. This is the frustrating time. It's one of the most rewarding times when you see a player putting pen to paper, but you know how hard work goes into it. And that, for me, is something that supporters have got to be a little bit more patient with. I know I've grown up as an impatient man. This is an impatient time for me. But when I start piecing together that jigsaw, hopefully everybody will see the picture at the end of it.
And do you enjoy this part of it as well? Because I know you're quite an extroverted manager in that you like to be in front of players, you like to be on the touchline, you like to be able to do things as such, whereas this has to be a little bit more refined and a slower pace.
Slower pace, it's a slower procedure. Now that I've came to this level, I understand that sometimes contracts run out at the end of last season and nobody's getting paid during the course of the closed season. We've all got what crosses to bear. At the end of the day, we are what we are. We're at this level for a reason. We don't want to be at this level. We want to be at the level that we've just been relegated from. And we've got to get the right kind of mentality and the right kind of group of players for to get there. Sometimes it's not about how well they can control the ball. It's sometimes how aggressive they can be or how strong they can be in terms of the decision making that goes on during the course of a game of football. It's not my greatest time at all. I like to be on the touchline. I like to be in the changing room. I like to be in people's face. I like to be vocal. I like to be heard. And this, as I've just made reference to, is a time where you're not in front of the camera, you're actually behind the camera trying to plan and prepare and trying to organise pre-season, trying to organise a group of players that has been dissected and dissipated in the face of adversity, as in relegation. You're hoping you made right decisions, players that have left the football club. You're hoping you're making right decisions, players that are staying at the football club. And you're hoping you're making right decisions, players that are hopefully going to come to the football club. I think if you look around and you see Kidderminster Harriers in the National League, North or South, we're one of the big eggs, shall we say, that we're one of the big targets that players want to play for, but also we're one of the big targets that players want to come here and beat. So we know what we are, but hopefully that first part, players that want to come here and express themselves for Kidderminster Harriers, hopefully we'll get the right group of players that can represent Kidderminster Harriers next year.
And how do you, because sort of taking that point first, how do you manage that challenge as well? Because with respect to us, we were probably a fair to middling sized club in the National League. There were some much bigger clubs and a few a little smaller, but in the National League North, it was probably up there, as you say, with one of the bigger teams and the bigger clubs in the league, and that has its own challenges as well.
I had a look at one or two fixtures at the end of last year in preparation, just in case, because you want to know where you're going. And when you see the likes of a Scunthorpe, who I played against as a player 25, 30 years, 35 years ago, who've always been an AFL team, now find themselves in the wilderness, if you want to call it the wilderness, but they're one of the big targets. And that's what you've got to have. You've got to have a group of players that have the mentality to be able to stand up to that. You've got a target on your back as Kidderminster Harriers now. You've got a target on your back as being a big club in this smaller division, supposedly. We've got to have... Doing our homework is not just about going and seeing a player play. It's doing your homework with regards to his family, his background, the history of the player, how many games has he played at this level, can he cope with the fact that he's got a target on his back, can he cope with the fact that he's playing for Kidderminster Harriers. All of them things are down to them hard yards that I'm talking about, meeting players, meeting their families, asking the right kind of questions, asking the kind of questions what possesses them to want to come to Kidderminster Harriers. Have they got the right mentality to play for us? All of them things have got to be ticked, all them boxes. And I think we're doing a decent job behind the scenes, but the supporters are not seeing the benefit of that at this moment in time. But eventually, hopefully, that group of supporters that I'm talking about will see the benefit, because when we start next season, we'll be ready.
Talking about some of the business we've already done, you've touched briefly on Ashley Hemmings and Christian Dibble staying, and unfortunately Shane Byrne moving on, as we've already discussed. Just kind of reflecting on those bits and bobs, because as we said at the time, there are some plus points and some negatives at this time of the year, aren't there?
You're going to get negatives in football, you're going to get defeats in football, you're going to get sides where you come up against them and you think you should beat them and you don't, and there's all sorts of disappointments in the game, but there's also the big positives, and I think, signing Dibbs on an extended contract for me was a great sign of the positivity of the club, coming down a level and managing to keep a hold of Christian Dibble. For me, a player individually that kept 13 clean sheets in the National League, to keep a hold of them was a great tick of a massive box. The goalkeeper is such an important department that if he can keep clean sheets, if he can organise a defence in front of them, he won't have to make as many saves, hopefully, as what he did when I was at the helm at the end of last season. But then Ashley Hemmings, who scored goals at the level that we're at now, and scored goals at a higher level, but also the creativity in the final third. Fingers crossed, we're on the verge of possibly signing Amari Morgan-Smith. For me, that would be a great signing where the supporters are concerned. He managed to get the Player of the Year. From a supporter's perspective, that for me is a telltale sign that he wears the shirt with pride. He puts a shift in every time he pulls a Kidderminster Harriers badge on it. And all of these things are real positive moves. The negative one was the skipper not realising that we've come down a level and that he had to cut his cloth accordingly. But that's life, and that was a big disappointment to me. I really rated Shane Byrne, there's no doubt about it. But he goes on to pastures new with our hopefully good hope. Get on with it. You have to do what you have to do. But the bottom line is, they are three big players in my opinion: Dibbs, Ashley Hemmings, Amari Morgan-Smith, that have played and represented Kidderminster Harriers in the National League and done very well. And that's the main reason why I'm delighted as a manager to re-sign them players, to get them back on board, to make sure that we have the best opportunity to come out the National League North in the best shape we possibly can. And there is a footprint that we've got something that we know what it takes to get out the National League North, and we've got three players there that can prove that.
Season tickets obviously will go on sale in the coming days as we're speaking now. It's the time of year where you probably need the biggest investment from fans that you get in terms of a financial outlay. Just in terms of wanting them along for the ride, we've said this numerous times, but the kind of mission only works and is only achieved together, isn't it really? We can't do anything without the supporters. We can't achieve anything without the supporters.
The supporters don't just come in when we're winning games of football. Okay, we bolster the crowd for sure because we're winning games of football, but the supporters are here through thick and thin. They are the key holders of this fantastic football club. I'll be long gone and they'll still be here. The chairman will be long gone and they'll still be here. You'll be long gone and they'll still be here. The supporters are ever present through thick and thin, and they've supported us last season through the thin. Hopefully it'll be through the thick next year. The new signings hopefully will excite one or two of the supporters and get some pennies out of their pockets, but it's basically Kidderminster Harriers through and through. They're the supporters that we want, season ticket holders. We want to get as many as we possibly can in for the start of next season, to start the campaign in a positive light. Without them season ticket holders, we're nothing, and we know they'll come, but we want to reward them by bringing in the right kind of players so that they can hopefully have a little bit of pride with home performances, not just the away performances this season.
Yeah, it's a little cliche, I suppose. Everyone in football, whatever club you support, at whatever level, people are always asking about the new faces and the new signing. Just going back to the point we started with, that's obviously a big chunk of the work that the likes of the chairman and yourself and Dean and all the staff really are doing in terms of recruiting those, and there's a lot that goes into it, isn't there?
There's an awful lot more than meets the eye. You know, for a club like Kidderminster Harriers, being in the tier that we're in, to have a director of football, to have a chairman that's willing to pay for that, you know, to have a backroom staff that I've got and support that, gives me a great opportunity and gives the team a great opportunity to win games of football. But most importantly, the recruitment side of any football club is the most important part at this stage of the season. And to have almost a recruitment backroom staff that are all working tirelessly at this moment in time to make sure that all the agents that are sending every player in that they can possibly ever imagine wanted to play for Kidderminster Harriers, we've got to make sure that they tick the right boxes. And that right box is, one, can you handle playing for this football club in the National League North? That's the most important part. Not have you got the ability, can you handle playing for Kidderminster Harriers, and hopefully we'll get that one right.
And it's flipping that the right way, isn't it? I suppose when weeks pass, as they do at this time of the season, it's the one quieter period. You can often fall into thinking as a supporter into a trap of thinking nobody wants to come to your club, when in actual fact it's needing
the opposite.
To sort. Yeah.
It is the opposite. It's everybody does want to come. The ones that are out of contract want to come to the club. The ones that see us coming down into a league that possibly I could play for Kidderminster Harriers now. All of them things, everybody wants to get out there and play for or represent Kidderminster Harriers, but we've got to make sure that they're the right kind of people. And that doesn't mean to say nastily the right kind of people. I'm just saying, one, have they got the ability to play? Two, have they got the temperament to play in the National League North? And three, can they actually handle having a target on their back? And that target is the rest of the league coming after us. We've got to make sure when we tick all of them boxes, have they got the ability to entertain? Have they got the ability to put a smile on people's faces? And more importantly, have they got the ability to get promoted from this division?